Welcome to Crossroads. In today's episode, we'll talk about how the United Nations is being accused of helping facilitate mass illegal immigration into the United States, possibly running the largest human trafficking operation ever carried out. Now, the United Nations International Organization for Migration, IOM, which many of you know we've talked about before, is now finally being exposed more broadly. And it turns out that, yes, they get money from the U.S. government, which means it's coming from your tax dollars. And your tax dollars are paying for them to play a key role in assisting people looking to use the amnesty system to gain entry to the United States. And they're also working through numerous NGOs and nonprofits as part of these operations, which your tax dollars are also financing directly. We will talk about it. First off, let me show you this. This is Todd Bensman, Senior Fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies, explaining on Fox News how the United Nations is involved in running the border crisis.
The United Nations, it turns out, is spending hundreds of millions of dollars in cash handouts, food, shelter, something called humanitarian transportation, really every human need that is required to make the long journey through Latin America, Central America, and Mexico. And who pays the UN? Who's the UN's major funder? It's the U.S. taxpayer is paying for this.
Now, remember one of the other big accusations coming out. They're getting prepaid debit cards. We're giving them money, or we're not giving them money. The United Nations is using our money. And of course, the fake news media said that is fake news, fact check, false. Turns out, yes, they're getting prepaid credit cards and cash envelopes, and they're giving these to the illegal aliens, and that's your tax dollars hard at work, folks. New York Post had this. The United Nations just released the 2024 Interagency Coordination Platform for Refugees and Migrants from Venezuela. Remember, this is just about Venezuela. It's bigger than this, so keep in mind this is just a small piece. And it notes that a planning and budget document for handing out $1.6 billion in 17 Latin American countries, and it confirms, finally, that the United Nations, with the helping hands of 248 named non-governmental organizations, the NGOs, is indeed giving debit cards to illegal migrants, funded in large part by U.S. taxpayers. We're paying their travel fees. We are giving them money, and we're not being told we're doing it. And notes that despite the R4V plan, this is the document from the United Nations, titled naming Venezuelans as recipients of this aid operation, the document's fine print, the footnote, page 14, paragraph page 43, for instance, says the largesse goes to all nationalities and multiple other nationalities. And notes further in a nutshell, the United Nations and its advocacy partners want to spread $372 million in cash and voucher assistant and multi-purpose cash assistant to 624,300 immigrants who in transit to the United States during 2024. And notes that money is most often handed out, other UN documents show, as prepaid rechargeable debit cards, but also hard cash in envelopes, bank transfers, and mobile transfers the U.S. border-bound travelers can use for whatever they want. Now, remember, folks, I said this in a special feature just a couple years ago. We've been saying this for a long time right here on Crossroads. We were criticized for it. We were called fake news for it. We were accused of spreading disinformation. And guess what? All of it is true. Every single thing we've been talking about has now been proven true. And of course, look, I was at the U.S.-Mexico border. I was on the Mexico side. You can look at the ground and it's covered with people's discarded ID cards, travel papers with United Nations markings on them, bus tickets, plane tickets, and yes, these prepaid debit cards that they're handing out to the illegal aliens. Now, this article continues, noting this is only one part of much broader UN hemisphere-wide vision that aims to spend $1.59 billion assisting about 3 million people in 17 countries who emigrated from home nations. And keep in mind, that's just their budget for the coming year. That's just their budget for the coming year. And it's worse than this, actually. There were reports coming out because this is about trafficking them to the U.S. United Nations using your tax money, financing all these NGOs, giving cash payments for people to come and illegally enter the United States. They're facilitating it, they're paying for it, they're awarding these people for violating U.S. law. And then once they get here, there's new reports coming out, for example, in Chicago, that the illegal aliens are getting $9,000 a month, at least around that, for various purposes, including, for example, with housing vouchers. Now, back to this story, though. It's been making rounds, folks. The news that the United Nations is running the border crisis using money paid for by U.S. taxpayer dollars. This is no longer just something you're going to hear. I think we were some of the only folks talking about it for a long time. There's a few other sources, but not broadly, right? This was not like something you'd see plastered all over the mainstream media. This is now out there. This is now being better understood, and people are finally reporting on it. Now, part of this is being exposed because the United Nations, well, just outright revealed the programs in its 2024 budget, and people noticed. The document explains how the United Nations has been giving out cash and other forms of assistance to, yes, facilitate mass illegal immigration into the U.S. And look, many of you might remember we exposed a few years back the special feature that I did, and that was called Border Deception. And we detailed as well how the United Nations is running these operations, one of the main branches being the IOM, International Organization for Migration, how it was paying all the illegal immigrants along the way. And yes, we exposed how U.S. taxpayer dollars were a main source for all of it. And you might also remember, again, one of the main United Nations organizations we exposed in particular, which is again the International Organization for Migration, or IOM. And remember this name because you're going to be hearing it a lot more now. The IOM is also finally now being outed. Zero Hedge said this. Meet Amy Pope, an open borders advocate, Obama apologetic, and an accomplice of DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. As the UN's Deputy Secretary of the International Organization of Migration, IOM, the preeminent NGO in the field of migration, she plays an integral role in the illegal alien surge at our southern border. Further in, it states, her coronation occurred at the United Nations 87th Assembly, meeting with world leaders on human mobility, quote unquote, to harness the power of migration, quote unquote, where migration is a powerful driver to fulfill the UN's Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development Goals. Remember, the United Nations has Agenda 2030, and that includes 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the socialist wish list of all the things they want to change in the world. And they're saying that they need illegal immigrants to do it. They need to bring, it seems, the entire southern hemisphere of the world and flood it into the northern hemisphere, almost entirely into the United States, maybe Canada, and of course into Western Europe. Now, this woman who's the head of the IOM, she's proud to be moving tens of millions of people, it says, from their land of origin to destabilize Western host nations. It notes that IOM aims to work closely with governments and other United Nations agencies to enable resettlement. To achieve that goal, it provides migrants with cash-based interventions, supplies, and transit assistance, in addition to coordinating and managing UN way stations like Lajas Blancas and Bajo Chiquito camps in Panama. And it notes that because of unprecedented migration, Pope's bold strategic plan is increasing the 2024 budget to $7.9 billion, nearly a threefold increase over the 2023 budget. Are you getting that? They're going to have 3 times as much money to carry out these operations this coming year, the one we're in right now, as they did last year. And that could possibly mean we're going to see these operations grow threefold right ahead of the American presidential election. And notes further in, we can be sure that the State Department will help fill that void, because as it's coming out now, the State Department is financing these operations using our money. Now again, you might be wondering, where is all that money coming from? Well, we now have the answer. Our tax dollars. And it turns out they've been shelling it out to pay for the invasion of the United States. And of course, folks, I'll be revealing more on this and talking about the U.S. border crisis and how it's just a giant fake charade. They're pretending to secure the border. They're pretending to deport people. They're playing this big game, and they're not telling you what's actually happening. Behind the scenes with it, they're funding it. Behind the scenes with it, they're working hand in hand with the United Nations to carry it out. Behind the scenes, they have used Border Patrol and repurposed it into an organization to just process this flooding of America with illegal aliens from every, corner of the earth, it seems. And they're not telling us why they're doing it for some weird reason. They're trying to hide it from us for some weird reason. And anytime someone like myself goes and exposes what they're doing, including, for example, the cash payments, which we now know are real, they try to hide it, they try to cover it up, they try to silence it and censor it and so on, which is, of course, why you should go over to Epoch TV for the rest of this episode, because speaking of censorship, they censor me like you wouldn't believe. I did a special report on this called Border Deception a few years back. Everything we reported on it is now being vindicated. Everything we reported on it is actually ahead of the curve still. You can watch that on Epoch TV, EpochTV.com, so be sure to check it out. Again, we'll be going into more stories after this. But again, those of you on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, jump over now to Epoch TV for the rest of the episode, and I will see you there.
Experts agree. One of the best ways to protect against financial uncertainty is to diversify your portfolio. Learn how physical gold and silver can secure your retirement funds from today's economic challenges. With a gold IRA from American Hartford Gold, you can safeguard your wealth with no penalties or taxes when you transfer your current qualifying retirement accounts. Call now and our precious metals specialists will send you a free information kit, no cost or obligation. American Hartford Gold, a trusted industry leader with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, has a 5-star rating from thousands of happy clients. Whether you are getting physical precious metals in a gold IRA or delivered to your doorstep, we offer only the highest quality gold and silver. For your peace of mind, we also offer a no-fee buyback commitment, a low-price guarantee, along with free shipping and free insurance. So don't wait. Call the number on your screen today and secure your financial future.